All right, welcome everybody. We're in our last 30 minutes together. We're going to talk a little bit more about certification. My screen's cracking me up. Do we have any questions about the lab? Anything we got to dive into before we move on to this last little topic before I give you your brains back for the day? Does it feel like a lifetime since we started on Monday? Yeah, that's like a while ago. So good. Okay. We got one more day. I got to say tomorrow's a pretty easy, straightforward day. Probably just jinxed us, but fair enough. So, all right. First of all, I'm going to talk just briefly about an object, and then we're going to dive into the practice exams. Okay. So, one, I just want to make sure this study plan is super. Wait, hold on. That's not it. Hold on. That's the webinar. Here it is. Study guide. Sorry. Make sure this study guide is super clear. Hold on. I'm having a little bit of a moment here. Give me just 1 second. Yeah, that's pretty good. Hold on. Why is that different than mine? Oh, I know why. Hands-on workshops. Okay. Haha. Guess what's going to happen now? I'm going to share a link with you that I want you to have access to because I think I provided an updated hands-on workshops link, and I'm going to have that updated actually in the workshop link that you have. But the one I just provided to you is a more updated copy that I just recently updated, like super fresh. One of the things inside of this thing is there's a whole like set of hands-on workshops. That's important, right? Because not a lot of supplemental labs inside of amazon.quicklabs.com for data scientists or people learning machine learning. So what about some hands-on workshops? So one, I just want to make sure this is here because like for example, this is a SageMaker workshop. That sounds like fun, doesn't it? Kind of like what we're doing here, but another variety of workshop to kind of like get you going. This is a general list of workshops that's available on a link called right, workshops.aws. By the way, any new workshop they do is typically thrown out here as well. So keep this because here's a recognition immersion day. Here's scaling, right? Kendra, I'm not even talking about Kendra. Anyway, operation the machine learning pipeline, right? Kind of similar to what we're doing, but more Lambda, more code build, more pipeline, more CI/CD pipeline for that kind of thing. There's a personal protective equipment that actually came out of something we did over at Honeywell, so that's interesting. And then data lakes, MLOps, safe deployment pipeline, Lex workshop. That seems pretty valuable, doesn't it? Some personalization, work placement, IoT analytics, Deep Racer, although it is Japanese, but there's another one in English. Some stuff about using IDEs like learning to code. I'm not even sure why this is here, frankly. Inferentia, more personalized. Anyway, more workshops than you could probably do in a month. I hope you find that useful. By the way, if you don't know about Spot and other things, I also want to mention, by the way, that while we are focused on the AL ML section here, if you're like, Michael, what if I want to know more about, I don't know, CloudWatch or game tech or IoT or anything? I got to tell you, if you're looking for a specific service, this will give you all the things, right? If you're looking for recognition, there's only really one. If you're like, hey, Michael, I need to know more about CloudWatch, right? So just know that this workshops link is just invaluable for any topic, but there is an AL ML thing. If you've never touched Kinesis before, there it is, right? So just keep that in mind, is that this hopefully becomes then a jumping point for you to get access to the labs you need for the subject you're looking for. I would use this as a service specific hunt, right? You're like, I'm looking for labs on this specific service. That's what you use it for. Now, the other thing here is that this is from AWS.samples. There's a bunch, by the way, under AWS samples, but here's the 2019 SageMaker debugger model. But if you go to AWS.samples and look at their repositories, there's a lot out here. If you're looking for SageMaker, secure ML ops, this was updated 11 hours ago, by the way. Auto shutdown extension, so you can shut down your studio notebooks, which is the conversation that Devin and I were literally having, right? CDK, setting up SageMaker using the Cloud Development Kit because you want to do infrastructure as code. Please save these links. I'm going to make sure that sheet is updated on your portal, but you've got the direct link. I'm never deleting this until Google deletes my account. Okay. So you're going to have access to the sheet through every iteration of changes I make to it. Okay. Is that useful? Questions about that?
Which one did you click on to get here?
Oh, the third one down. The reInvent 29 debugger. What I did is I actually clicked on the link. This opened up GitHub, and then I actually just clicked on AWS samples. So I backed up a level. So this AWS samples repo, by the way, contains a lot of possibilities. I just was very specific on this because I want you to have access to a SageMaker debugger model. But AWS.samples is a great place to find published kind of labs and repos for different things inside AWS. Here's the last one. Here's the book. This is also on GitHub, but don't be fooled. Free O'Reilly book, right? Data science on AWS. End-to-end continuous learning touches all these services. If this feels like you're about to step into a minefield of information that's about to completely overwhelm you, you are. Perfect, right? Notice that there's a couple of different versions. A couple of 4-hour workshop, a 4-hour workshop, and there's an 8-hour workshop, right? This walks you step by step on how to set up like all these pieces. Studio, control panel. So you want to do a little self-discovery. This is a good one to start, right? All right. Entire book on SageMaker. Booyah. All right, just want to make sure you had that one as well. That is the fourth link down. That is the data science. That's a straight up link. You don't have to like click around for that one. Questions? I would say the SageMaker labs, like in general, like the immersion labs are probably going to be your start. You might also want to look at the SageMaker documentation about running, like bringing your own custom frameworks. Like that's probably where it starts. Between that and the documentation are probably the ones that are going to be the most beneficial to you, because a lot of that's custom work. And once you understand how it works in the docs and you understand how like some of the usability of SageMaker, and now then it's easy for you to extend at that point in time. It's not hard for you to figure it out. Yeah. And the other place, like, I know this sounds weird, but sometimes I scour Medium for like tutorials because people are really good about putting stuff on Medium that is tutorial based. So if you're not subscribed to Medium and medium.com against the ML space, I don't think I have a login right here, but yeah, it is things I'm gonna use easier because there's another Chrome browser that has all my stuff on it. But you can actually like specify, right? Yeah, and Towards Data Science is another great one. Geek for Geeks is also another good one as well. Yeah. Quick Labs, you'll have access to the Quick Labs for I think 3 months. You can only run each lab 3 times though. So when you decide to commit to an 8-hour chunk, don't just start in the lab, because I think you're only going to run it once here. And so if you run it again, you get access to it 3 times. That's a AWS thing. So. All right, let's talk about Tutorials Dojo. Unless anyone has any questions about that sheet I just shared with you. I'm not sure why you took me there. That was fascinating. Let's talk about this. Oh yeah, you can buy more practice exams all you want on Tutorials Dojo. So they are really good. So I'm a fan. I say go for it. All right, let's resume our quiz in the last 20 minutes. Okay. All right, so a little bit more about like strategies to think about, and I actually espoused on some of this earlier when we were doing the check-in link. So a data engineer needs to build a data repository to store hundreds of existing training data sets for model training. The repository should be available to everybody for the new data sets. The storage scheme should automatically scale, has to be cost efficient, should also support SQL querying capabilities. What is the most cost-effective, scalable answer that also will support SQL querying capabilities? Some people are not aware that S3 can actually support direct SQL queries, and through Athena, you can actually ingest structured log data or that kind of thing as well, right? So Redshift is going to be expensive, even with reserve prices, and even though it's data analytics, it's not going to scale. You're going to get about 3.2 petabytes out of a Redshift cluster, and then, well, actually, you can harbor a lot more, but like, yeah, you're going to run into limitations. EBS is not cost effective or efficient. It's actually fairly expensive. And then DynamoDB is definitely not a data warehousing tool. Fast, but not cheap. I mean, for storing large amounts of data. So this is it. Notice I went through and I eliminated, you know, if you don't feel very confident about your answer, or if you get a bunch of answers, remember, you want to go back and eliminate the other things. Did you notice, by the way, that in order for me to do exclusion, I had to know something about the other services? So I'm just going to say this. It would not hurt to go do Cloud Practitioner or architecting. At least Cloud Practitioner wouldn't hurt, right? Or at least go and review the services. Like, go find out what most of the core services are. What are the core services? Or the ones that are either data stores, or either host applications or data, host networking for those applications, or host storage for those applications. That's it. Might want to go through the AWS service list and just see if you can like find out what things do. Let's see, James. I would say that they're either about the same or a little bit harder. And they're only harder because the questions don't match what's on the exam, right? So sometimes different topics show up because of those 15 unscored questions. Those 15 unscored questions are definitely harder than the standard set of questions, but for the most part, they're about the same, right? But of course, it's, you know, doesn't look identical. By the way, here's an endpoint, an interface, interface endpoint. Anyway, here's an endpoint for SageMaker. So this is the SageMaker endpoint, right? So just know that like there also could be endpoints over on the S3 side of things. Oh, that's the other thing. You can't SQL query against a volume. You can't SQL query against Redshift. I don't think. That's funny because I think it did support. Anyway, DynamoDB doesn't natively support SQL querying. Oh, it does transactions, but it won't do SQL queries. So, by the way, there's Athena, which is kind of inferred that you know Athena exists and that you can use it to do queries against S3 data. Oh, did we skip one and this is how we ended up? Hold on. Huh, we're gonna go over here. All right. Someone is developing an NLP model that powers a paraphrasing tool. This tool aims to generate closely associated words that a user can pick to help him construct sentences. Specialist wants to boost the model performance by feeding word features to a downstream task. Do you want to download a pre-trained word embedding? You want to transform a large text data set using one-hot encoding? Produce a vector of every word from a corpus and calculate the Levenshtein distance? That's funny. Or do you want to use Mechanical Turk to create a set of related words? So they're running an NLP model, and they want it to power a paraphrasing tool, something that paraphrases. So they want to basically generate closely associated words that a user can pick to construct sentences, right? And so they want to boost it by feeding it word features to a downstream task. Now, word features, that's a pretty well-known, right? I only laugh. I was laughing at Levinstein, just so you know, Christopher. I was laughing at Levinstein just because, one of those, in other words, that I don't always pronounce correctly, that I was laughing at myself. So we want to feed word features. Now, just to say this, when you can borrow a known data set for something that is commonly known, like the English language, right? Or geospatial, right? Not known locations. But when you've got like known data sets that you can pull from that I've already trained, that's typically preferred. Is like, let's pull from a known, like pre-trained like data set, right? And so in this particular case, we're gonna download a pre-trained word embedding, right? Now they're gonna use the Blazing Text algorithm, right, for word to vec and text classification. So word embedding is a vector representation of the word. They are semantically similar, correspond to certain vectors that can be identified and then as close together. That way, word embedding captures the semantic relationships between words, right? Seen this before. So NLP applications learn these embeddings by training on large collections of documents because, right, English language. And pre-trained vector representations provide information about semantics, right, that improve the generalizability of other models that are later trained on a more limited amount of data, right? So downloading a pre-trained word embedding is the right answer. Now, one-hot encoding it just converts variables into a binary vector. So it's going to be difficult to get right. It's going to be difficult to get the vector relationship out of a binary setup, binary representation. Levenstein distance, or sometimes called the edits distance, is like the difference between words, and so you can see it there where it's like read, R-A-E-D is closer to the word read than the word B-A-E-D, because all you need to do is change order versus replacing a letter, right? So that's more suited for like autocorrect or fuzzy search functions, right? Auto completion. And Mechanical Turk is just a crowdsourcing thing to like label data. You could do that to create a corpus, if you will, but if you've already got a pre-trained corpus, you just use that. Hopefully, like if you're looking at this and you're going, well, okay, Michael, I didn't know the answer. If this is your first time seeing this, the fact that you got exposed to Blazing Text, Levenstein distance, right? One-hot encoding, which way we're going to talk about at least briefly. Like, you want to have a notebook or something that you're using to track all these things that you don't know where they go. And I would highly recommend that you associate them with what they are, right? In other words, one-hot encoding is just a form of encoding. You should have a section of your notebook that says encoding. You've drawn a big old word, one-hot encoding, in there, right? There should be another section. For example, we're talking about text classification, if you will. Blazing Text should go in there, right? It has an algorithm that we can use for this. So you can start to kind of craft your own inner world and inner associations, especially as you learn this material. These are great ways to study, is to like create, in a sense, like mind maps, if you will, of associations between these topics and put the specifics under those associations. Okay. Couldn't encourage that enough. Play with the material if you want to master it. Okay. This one I'm not going to really analyze. You got different sets of training data to evaluate learning classification models against each other. They want to rank the generated model by its ability to predict true positives. Yeah. Okay. Got some specific votes there. There we go. All right. Oh, hold on one second. Yeah, in a little bit, 10 minutes or so. All right, so right, so we talked about AUC-ROC today, right? AUC measures the ability of model to predict a higher score for positive examples compared to negative examples. It's an independent of score cutoff, right? Yeah, well, the other thing is, by the way, is that what are RMSE and MAPI used for? Just to answer your question, Jonathan. Yeah, good. Yeah, they're used for regression, so they wouldn't fit in this particular case. So basically, you can get a sense of prediction actually without picking a threshold, right? Just a general sense of it, right? So this is going to return that 0 to 1 value that we're talking about. Obviously, it's near 1. It indicates a model that is highly accurate. 5 is a model that's really no better than guessing. And values near 0, like they indicate here, are really actually super unusual because they usually indicate that there's some kind of issue. Because if you can't do better than guessing, then there's something misaligned in your data, right? So to compare the different classifiers, we're going to summarize the performance into a single measure. This approach is obviously the right area under the curve. So it does actually like the model is able to predict a higher score for positive examples compared to negative examples, right? So you get a sense of the prediction performance without picking a particular like score threshold. This is not, so RMSE is not suitable for classification models. This is for regression, right? Just like RMSE, this is used for regression models down here for the MAPI. And then specificity is incorrect. This is needed to plot the curve, but it's not by itself. It's not going to give information for this scenario, right? Again, I just cannot say this enough. If you're out there kind of like, I'm completely overwhelmed and not sure what we're talking about, take the information, classify it, categorize it, write it down, and then eventually it'll start to make sense as you see it and hear it more and more, okay? All right. An ML specialist, hundreds of thousands of records and CSV files into an S3 bucket. Each file has 150 columns, is about 1 meg in size. Most of the queries will span 5 columns. The data must be transformed to basically minimize the query time, so maximize speed. What did we say was going to improve speed and performance? What? No XML? No? Let's check it out. Parquet, right? Remember I said that in terms of speed, CSV, Parquet, right? Protobuf, right? We want to run queries. By the way, if we're running a query, notice it didn't say training. If we're running a query, what are we doing? So yes, Keith, first of all, yes. What we're doing is we're probably running SQL queries, right? Because we're looking for specific data. And so we're probably using Athena. We're reading in, we are scanning that data, right? So Parquet is going to be the answer for Athena because Athena doesn't read Protobuf. Athena reads Parquet. And let's see, there is a list, like there are a bunch of application MIME types that are available for what SageMaker will ingest. CSV, TSV, JPEGs, Protobuf, you know, there's a very short, relatively short list. So Athena, though, is going to support lots of different formats, not as, you know, actually surprising number. Notice that Parquet and Orc are listed there. Yeah, you can read all that if you want to. Gzipped CSV is basically, it's not really going to improve performance because now you're going to have to uncompress it, and you're still going to be reading basically against row-based files instead of column or file formats like Apache Parquet. So we're still back to formatting as being the same problem. Notice, by the way, that Athena cannot process XML directly. Good to know. All right, we're going to keep going. Got 5 more minutes. Scientists building a data lake solution for storing multiple data types. The data lake must support serverless metadata store and event-driven ETL pipelines. Which combination of services should the scientists use if they want ETL, right? And they want a metadata store, which is like a collection of about a metadata set about the data. All right, so one, definitely glue, right? But which of the glue things makes sense? A serverless metadata store. All right, let's see some guesses here. Extract the data using crawlers. See A and D, 1 and 4. Well, let me ask you a question. Just to make sure I want to be upfront about this. It says serverless metadata store. Is a Apache Hive metastore running on EMR? Is that serverless? So we got to be careful. It is telling you explicitly it's got to be serverless. So this one's not going to work. I want to catch you now before you commit to that answer, because that's not serverless. EMR is based on EC2 instances, right? So then if we know that's wrong, then unfortunately now we're stuck in CloudWatch land. Let me ask you this. Can a CloudWatch alarm trigger a Lambda function to start a batch job, or do you have to use a CloudWatch event to trigger a Lambda function? Yeah, you have to use an event. It's a little piece of information that completely changes your answer against this question, right? You have to use an event to trigger this, right? Wouldn't it be funny if I sound so certain and I click to check and it's like, oh my God, you're totally wrong, Forrester. Your reasoning is off, right? So you need to use CloudWatch events to trigger this ETL job, okay? But glue is the right answer. Remember, glue has other things. It has ETL, it has data catalog. You might want to just take a quick peruse of glue's subservices. We don't cover that at all. We don't even talk about glue, right? Okay, so this is serverless. It's a high level, highly abstracted service, right? Rah. Okay. Let's do one more and then we'll be done. Oh, look at this. All right, machine learning specialists at a mobile network company is tasked to develop a model that predicts customers who are likely to cancel subscriptions. We are predicting subscription cancels. Since the customer churn costs about $15, the plan plans on giving an $8 retention bonus for unhappy customers. The model was evaluated on 100 customers. And here's the confusion matrix. Why is this model feasible to deploy in production? Remember, a positive result means that this customer is going to cancel, right? So a positive prediction means this one's going to cancel. Keith. First of all, how do you know the model's accuracy is 89%? Good. We derive that, by the way, by adding the yeses and the yeses and the no's and the no's, right? That's the true positives and the true negatives. So we added those together, right? To Dakota's point, Keith's point, we got to 89%. And then we added all four together and we got to 100, right? Because that's what we're trying to do, is accuracy is basically the true negatives and the true positives, right? Then divided by everything all together, right? So remember, someone was asking me, like, what kind of numbers do they give you that you can do the math in your head? These are the kind of numbers they give you. So good. All right. So then we know 89% is the answer. Now here's the question. The company told us that churn costs $15, right? For someone to leave, right? But if we give unhappy customers $8, in other words, is this worth it for us to do this? Because what we're asking for is that all their false negatives less than the false positives. The overall spending influence, right? All right, I'm gonna go with the first guess just so you can see it, right? So here's the funky thing, right? So consider this, right? Here we are, we're looking at basically, right, the confusion matrix, blah, 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 blah. Sounds great. Here's the math that we just did, right, for everything around accuracy, right? But then what has to happen is that false negatives, of which there were 3, are going to cost us $15. Because remember, that's a mistake where we like mispredicted and they actually did leave because we thought they weren't going to leave and they did leave, right? So that cost us $15 because that was a customer who left. That was us like not predicting accurately, right? We said that they weren't going to leave and they did leave. So 3 times 15 is 45, right? So that's $45 for our false negatives. Now over here for our false positives, we're going to give them an $8 retention bonus. We're going to give everybody an $8 bonus, but these guys are actually, they're actually weren't going to stay. They weren't actually going to leave, right? Or were they? And they were going to give us basically $64, right? So in this particular case, our false negatives ended up being $45. And in here, our false positive were costing us 64. So since the resulting in costs incurred by us predicting, right, falsely negative is less than our false positives, the overall spending will be lesser. Right? So the accurate model's accuracy is 89%, and the false negatives is less than the false positives. The overall spending of the model. Meaning it's costing us less to actually run this model in production. Okay. All right. I'm going to leave it there because we're going to come and revisit this, but I want you to think about it. Okay. So it's 5:03. You've been troopers, right? We're good here. We got day 4 tomorrow. We're pretty much do the same thing. Just be prepared. Tomorrow, I'm going to do the test prep after lunch so that when we get to the remaining pieces, you can pretty much just have, and we might be done by then, just so you know, but like, just to make sure, so that if we get to a lab or there's any other kind of lingering, those of you who finish early, you're done for the day, right? But just know I will stay with you until 5 o'clock if you want me to. I have no issue with that. That's what we were committed to. I just want you to know that that's what's happening. Okay. All right. Any burning questions before we leave? Okay. I will see you all tomorrow. I'm going to hang out just in case anybody has any lingering questions. Yeah. Otherwise, I'll see you at 8:30 tomorrow morning, Eastern. Dakota, is that the harder side of questions we expect? Yeah, it's about that level. There's probably like one that's slightly harder. Thank you, everyone. Sorry, Chris. Yeah, I didn't really have a chance. I got bled into lunch. The files are up there. They're being edited, so I can definitely get you the files here soon. I know you probably haven't seen any progress. I get you the files probably in the next like couple hours, like probably like by 7 or 8 o'clock for the last 2 days, but I can't get you today. So I'll make sure they're done by, let's just be safe. Give me till 8 o'clock, but they will be there. So then you can like relook that for that 1 hour I think you missed, right? I apologize. Just between the illness and everything, it's just like slowed me down. So Michael, you were asking like, how would you go about using the study guide? All right, so I'll repeat this tomorrow just so that everybody can have it. But the study guide, you don't really have to do every single thing there, right? What you really want to do is you want to do the things that you feel you are gapped in, which is why you go through the exam guide first and figure out what you don't know anything about. And then what you can do is you can go run through the exam guide and really just focus on the things that you remarkably know nothing about. Now, remember, the study guide was built for people who have been in machine learning for at least 2 years. So a lot of those subjects are going to be rote to them. But if you've never seen it before, you might end up going through every single thing in the guide if you don't actually have a machine learning position. I got to tell you, I mean, the ramp up guide's longer, but that guide is actually really good about getting you prepped up as a data scientist if you seek that role. So just know, right, that you know, it depends on your level of experience, but if you've already trained, then basically, right, you're gonna run through it and do everything. You're gonna do the things that you're weak on. If you have never been in an ML role at all, you're probably gonna end up doing most of those. The certification study guide, sorry. Yeah, let me pull that up really quick. Under the student portal, that would be the machine learning certification study guide.
Oh, gotcha. I was just wondering if you're mentioning something specific on the study guide. But yeah, you answered the question. Thank you.
Okay, just want to make sure. Good. Wayne, are you there? Must have missed him. All right, everyone, have a great evening. We'll see you tomorrow at 8:30.